Hi, I'm John, and this is an SH Figuarts Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. Let's unbox it and check it out. This is my third SHF figure and I really like it, but I think I could use a repaint. So let's see if I can turn this Figuarts into figure art. First, I gotta take it apart. Before I start painting, I'm gonna need some masking tape. I don't really want to mess with the colors of the gloves since, number one, I like them, and more importantly, I didn't want to have to repaint all the hands afterwards to match. Next, I applied a base coat of a darker shade of red on all of the fur using a mix of black red and flat red, starting with a finer brush against the skin border to make sure my lines are clean, and then going over the rest of the fur with a larger brush. Then I did the same on the lower torso, which really helped here because some of the skin paint on the original figure sort of bled into the fur section. And to finish this color off, I did the same to the tail. Next step was adding in some highlights, so I started with some bloody red, but when I went to go add them in, I realized that the difference in the shading wasn't really coming through, at least not the way I wanted them to, so I dry brushed some extra shading into the deeper crevices of the fur with some black red by itself, then went back out to the raised section to use the bloody red to help blend the transition. Then I did the same with the lower torso, adding black red into the muscle definition, and then adding some highlighting with some bloody red. And of course, I did the same with the tail. I did make some mistakes here and there and got a little bit of paint onto the skin section, so I cleaned off the paint using some Tamiya X20A thinner and a pointed Q-tip. Then moving on to the skin, I went in with shading the muscle definition with a mix of dark skin tone and brown rose. I used the existing skin tone as a base coat because, again, I just didn't want to paint all the extra faces. Next, to improve the blending between the two tones, I added in some highlights by dry brushing on some basic skin tone on the raised skin areas. Next up was the pants. There was some decent shading on here already, but I always noticed that when they put highlights on Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's pants, it's always this turquoise color, so I highlighted a lot of the raised areas and folds with some blue-green. Next, after showing this image to my wife and asking what color the boots are, I followed her expert opinion and painted the tips of the boots gold. I also thought that it added to the true 90s flair, and it sort of helps match what he wears when he becomes infected by Baby. After that, I painted his belt buckle gold to color match his boots. And that's about it for now with the legs, and we'll come back to them later on. Moving on to the head, starting with the faces. Similar to what I did with the chest pieces, I started out by shading in some of the little recessed areas of his face, like on his forehead and around his chin and cheeks using a small dry brush. Then to blend it in with the existing face color and make the difference in tone look a little less jarring, I used some basic skin tone with the same small dry brush. Next, I started working on the hair with a black base coat. One of my problems with this figure was not only was it very plastic looking, but different sections of the hair had different amounts of glossiness, so I wanted to pull all the tones together by starting over with a matte black. And for whatever reason Dragon Ball GT decided to do this, I also added in some brown highlights to his hair using some flat brown to add some extra texture. And of course, since I painted the hair section, that meant I had to paint the face plates to color match them as well. I used a fine brush to paint along Vegeta's receding hairlines, which actually ended up helping since I found some imperfections in the original line work. Then with a larger brush, I filled in the rest of the hair. Then, same with the hairpiece, I highlighted the hair using some flat brown. Moving on to some finer details, it was time to use my favorite Tamiya panel liners. I started with some pink brown panel liner on the ears and underneath the lips of each of the faces, and then used some brown panel liners along the eyebrow ridges, underneath the eyes, and inside some of the open mouths. I know it looks sloppy at this point, but I'll be cleaning it up later. And while that dries, I move back down to the torso. I started with some pink brown panel liner along all the muscle lines, and then use some dark brown panel liner to add some extra separation between the fur and the skin, as well as some more depth to the muscle lines on the fur. Then for the gloves, I added in some shading using a black wash, using a mix of black panel liner and some Tamiya X20 thinner. Similarly, to make them match with the rest of the gloves, I used the same black wash on his hands. All 12 of them. Moving down to the pants, I added in some black panel liners on all of the crevices in his pants, primarily focusing on the zipper and belt area, along with any of the other creases and folds. Then to finish everything off on his boots, I used the same black wash I used on his gloves, and painted in along all of the lines of his boots to give them some extra definition. Then it was time to pull out the Tamiya X20 thinner and some pointed Q-tips to clean up all my lines. While I clean this off, just a friendly reminder that you can find everything I'm using in this video, including the figure, paints, and brushes, linked in the description below as Amazon affiliate links. And check out my new Amazon storefront for other items that I like. If you do purchase anything on Amazon through those links, it helps support the channel with no cost to you. And if you liked my work on this figure, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Thanks again, and we're done. Alrighty, now that I'm finished up with that, the last thing I wanted to do was make Vegeta's midlife crisis leather pants as shiny as they seem to be in all the illustrations. So I applied a satin clear coat on his pants. It also helped make the difference in the shine consistent between his leg pieces and the crotch piece. All that was left was to put him back together, and he's done. Here's what he looked like before. And here's the final result. I really think the paint job elevated this figure. The matte finish on most of it makes him feel more premium, and the shine on his pants looks intentional instead of it just being the texture of the plastic. I was worried about some of the paint scraping off in the joint areas, but as I pose it, it doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm really liking the faces on these newer SHF figures too. This gritting face is definitely my favorite, but they're all good. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Of course, special thanks to my members. If you want progress photos while I'm working on a figure instead of waiting for the final video, as well as some other nifty features, check it out both on YouTube and buymeacoffee.com. And again, everything I use in the video is listed in the description below as Amazon affiliate links and on my Amazon storefront. If you like this video, drop a thumbs up, leave a comment, and most importantly, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
I need help!